Hi Krishna, welcome to TiB Bhakti. Bhadrasena here. Today I've got a really good analogy that's really helped me explain a lot of things of how devotees can really take more control of their bhakti, overcome problems, and start moving forward. And it's all about getting perspective. I think this analogy is very, very useful. So I'm going to share it and let's just go with it. And it all links to what Srila Prabhupada used to say, how there's the body, and the body is like a plane, and there's the pilot. And the pilot is this tiny little person in this huge body, the plane, and is directing the plane. I think this is a great analogy that can help you and give you the tools or the mindset to try to, which will help you overcome any struggles you're having and get perspective on the step-by-step moves towards becoming Krishna conscious. It's a journey. So, and of course, we're flying our own planes. And literally, they're coming back to like down to the ground level. You know, here we are, spirit soul, inside this Yantru Rudani Maya, inside this machine. Now, it's really important as a pilot to understand how the machine works. In fact, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, going into a lot of detail, subtle detail about the gross body and the subtle body. And we may skip over all that, but we need to have two things happening. We have to understand the material world we're living in, and that material world is experienced through the subtle body. It's through the mind that we experience the illusions of this world. And at the same time, we want to hear and become attracted to the spiritual world, to Krishna's pastimes, and to the spiritual platform, of course. But the two things go together. You know, you have to understand Maya. You know, you have to know the tricks of the mind, tricks of Maya, so you don't get bewildered. You have to understand you're the soul and what you're dealing with. That's why the secret of the Bhagavad Gita is explained, is the Trigunamaya, the three modes of material nature. Understanding these, but so we can get a little bit, listening to, Krishna's pastimes. We can get into the esoteric and the deep understandings of Leela and stuff, which is part of our practice. It's important, yes, but we also have to be aware that we're operating in the material world with the material body and mind, and that's where the kind of complications come in. And I personally, my own journey, and I've seen with many devotees, that often even though we look out in the outside world and we think, well, they're all an illusion, but we often see they don't understand, they're not the body, they're not the mind. We say all that. At the same time, we are really struggling with our own bodies and minds, but we generally aren't admitting it. And we haven't, I think sometimes we may have overlooked that we do need to understand, like a pilot of a plane, you can't enter the cockpit of the plane unless you know about all the switches, all the sensors that go into that plane, right? There's the basic mechanics of the, making the engine move, making the engines go, but there's all these other subtle senses within the cockpit. And we have to know what they work, what they mean. And otherwise we can get into trouble. So our job as bhakti yogis, as spiritual aspirants, is we've really got to understand what our role is in the beginning stages of bhakti. We have to understand that we are like pilots and we need training. Like it says in the Nectar of Instruction, the first stage is sense and mind control, meaning you, the spirit soul, have to know the senses and switches and the intricacies in the computer system of your plane, and you have to know how to control it, right? This is our beginning. We have to get expert and know what we're doing and understand what all the signals and switches and settings are in order to get the plane to the runway and then fly peacefully, fly to our next destination. And that's another part of this topic is, so the first stage is like the mindset, means understanding how your mind and body actually work and how the mind has its tricks. It's a wild thing, living with a subtle body, more complicated than AI and all the algorithms. You've got this subtle body that's been with us lifetime after lifetime. It's actually almost invincible, this subtle body. It doesn't dissolve, at the point of death, it's still with you, carrying us from one body to the next. It's the very medium that determines the next body and keeps us going from one body to another is the mind. Do you think we have an obligation and it's necessary, if we're going to fly this thing and try to be Krishna conscious, we should know how it works and how to operate it. So this is first stage. So we can't be whimsical. In fact, we don't even, Prabhupada explained in one of the purports in the Bhagavad Gita I was reading the other day that anything that's done whimsically cannot be offered to the Lord. So we can't be whimsical, and daksha is also one of the qualities of a devotee. We have to become very expert. Okay, so stage one, we're the pilot. So let's get into this analogy. So in order to fly a plane, you have to turn up sober. That's another thing. You pilots are checked for their sobriety. So, there's 4 regular principles. These are to make us sober, make us a human being, kind of mode of goodness, so we can actually begin our spiritual life properly. So a pilot, as you know, has to show up. That's our responsibility to do that. So our responsibility 100% for getting our mind and body to a point of mode of goodness, to be sober. And that also means on another platform that, remember, not happiness and distress come like the winter and summer seasons. One must not be disturbed. So just like a pilot is trained to tolerate high altitudes and turbulence and things happening with the plane, if you're not aware of all these things happening, it's very frightening when you go into turbulence and we get disturbed. So it's really important as the pilot that we understand the switches and controls, but we're also emotionally, our EQ, our emotional quotient, and our adversity quotient, our ability to tolerate suffering and adversity has to be very high. That's what we come to the table with. We have to learn to tolerate without being disturbed. These are, the first teachings of Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, and we often skip over, like they're the things you teach new people. Well, we're newer than we think we are, even though we've been around a while. And how much have we really, we've seen in the world, and in as things have happened in the world, devotees get so rattled by political decisions and changes economically and governments, and you see them just getting completely off the wall. So, we're not meant to be rattled by these things. It's the nature of being on the plane of having turbulence, and you just remain fixed. So that's the first thing. So the second point is, so that's mindset. Second thing is goals. It's like, so if you get into the cockpit, you need to know where you're going, right? You have to know, well, you're saying, well, I'm going back to Krishna. Yeah, okay, but there's the processes. We are going through stages, like Shivaram Swami in one of his books explained, Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, the process of devotional service, pure devotional service. He explained there, it's like a caterpillar. Like we're here, and the caterpillar puts up 2 legs to the next leaf, and then pulls itself up gradually with all the other legs and the next leaf. We have to know where we are in bhakti, in the stages, and we have to know what the next stage is we're aiming for, and then we need to start moving that way progressively. We're going through stages. So we don't go directly, so to speak. In our plane, we're going to different destinations progressively. And I think this is why a lot of devotees, we get a bit stuck. We don't really know where we're at and what are the next stages we're aiming for. Like a pilot, you can't just get in the plane and practice bhakti whimsically without any idea where you're heading. So we're going in stages. So the pilot, you need to know what the coordinates are. You don't want to be off. You have to know where you're heading. You're at the stage of an Nartana Vritti, and you're going through, Ruchi, Asakti. There's these different stages of the bhakti development. So goals are really important. So coming down to the ground level, if, having issues, that's the same with what's happening in the next month for you. So I sit with devotees and I say, so where's your plane right now? Where's it heading? What's the goal in the next 90 days, 3 months, or 6 months, or this year? What is it you're working on that where you want to get to with developing the qualities of bhakti and your practices of bhakti? Oh no, I'm just getting by, just trying to, No, it's vague. You can't be vague. Like a pilot, um, a pilot isn't vague where we're heading and what the coordinates are. You have to know. So I think sometimes we don't come down to practical sometimes. This could probably help some of you. If you're like, my sadhana is not where it wants to be. My chanting's not where it wants to be. My relationship with my spouse isn't going so well. My services and want to do more service at the temple. I want to get into book distribution, or I want to develop some musical ability for kirtans. So you've got to make some goals here. You got to understand, like, where is it I want to be in 30 days from now, and have a plan. A goal without a plan is just a wish. It's just a desire. So it's really important that we have some vision of where we want to be going. We have to have a vision. Krishna, this is kind of where I want to be heading. This is what I'm desiring to move closer to you at this stage, right? We'll get into, like, we have the vision and it may change along the way, but we have to say to Krishna, this is my desire, and he fulfills desires. So if we're not desiring anything, then what's Krishna going to do? He's not going to force you. So it's really important we have clarity on our goals. So that's really key. So, and there are stages. So where are we heading? Right now, where are you heading? Where are you at? What is it about your devotional life you want to improve? Let Krishna know and make a vision and a desire, and then he will help. Yeah? So you're the pilot. And I always quote back to the Bhagavad Gita, where Prabhupada explains that the yogi plans in advance each day what to do with his senses. Yeah. Meaning, the yogi, spirit soul, directs the brain and the mind, tells the brain what it wants to do, and then backs it up by action every day. That's why we have routine, mode of goodness. Mode of goodness is a way of directing the brain and the body to the activities and actions that produce the result you want. So you may be doing your rounds every day and reading every day. That's really, really good. But then there's there are other things to do other than chanting and reading, and other areas to improve in. They're just the core habits, so to speak. So you've got your core habits. So you've got that down. But then where are you getting, how's your relationships going? How's your abilities, your services going? We're always looking to increase and get better. We're not monists. We're not into just like being. Now I've done my rounds. Now the world's just going to be the way. We're always looking to increase the service to our spiritual master and to Krishna, to increase Krishna's pleasure. It's a constant incremental increasing development eternally. So it's important that we're always moving forward. And of course, we are going through these stages as the pilot. So like the caterpillar, we've got to go through these different phases, and we can't be whimsical. So, and we can't be vague. So I have a lot of Instagram posts and other videos that I do on that, which you can look at. So if you're liking this so far and you like this idea of the pilot, so imagine yourself, then please subscribe below. You can follow more of my stuff. So subscribe below to the channel and to my podcasts and stuff. And you can, hopefully these things will be useful to you, and be good to get your feedback too. So how useful these are. So this is real down to earth practical stuff. So that we looked at the mindset, the preparation, getting ourselves together, walking into the plane. So every day, imagine you're waking up and walking into the plane, into the cockpit of your life every day. The night before, do you think you'll have some preparation as a pilot who's flying out the next day? Yeah. You probably think about, okay, what's my destination tomorrow? So when you get into the cockpit, you can do all the settings. You can plan everything. You put the coordinates in, yeah? And your goals are very clear. You know what it is that you're trying to get to. So the destination, if I want to go to Europe, for instance, I can hop to Australia, then I can go Hawaii, then LA, then across across America, then go from New York over to the UK. So I have to know, where am I right now? Okay, I'm in Australia. I need to get to Hawaii. Okay, so I focus on that. Okay. The third thing is really, really key. In the cockpit is the co-pilot, mentors, association. You need the co-pilots because sometimes you fall asleep. Sometimes you might put a switch in the wrong place. You know what I mean? You might lack a little bit of confidence about the flight and the journey you're going on. So you have a co-pilot to assist you, who you're accountable to. You have checklists together. You check off together at the cockpit, the settings, where you're heading. You verify everything with the mentor at even during the journey to, say, from Australia to Hawaii. We're constantly assessing each other. Each hour there's a recheck, there's a recheck, there's a recheck as you go along to make sure you're not off course, right? So remember, Prabhupada said, you're the spirit soul, you're the pilot of your plane, but you have a co-pilot with you. You could say super soul. If you're in touch with a super soul, awesome. But of course, the super soul is externally manifested by the sadhus, so by the spiritual masters. So spiritual master is you got Diksha, but you got Shiksha, your Shiksha guru, right? And then you got the radio. Okay, so major things are happening. Some things really needs to be reported in for major decisions, because generally our spiritual masters are traveling, spreading the mercy in the world. You can ring in, check in with the spiritual master. So local mentors are with you on the day-to-day, and the radio is when you're hitting a lot of turbulence, for instance, or you feel like you're a bit uncertain. You can check in with the spiritual master. What is this? Accountability. You need to be staying in contact with the spiritual master, not every day-to-day small things that can be sorted out locally, but are you going in the right direction? Am I doing the right things? How do I need to improve? That's the radios. That's really key. So this is really useful to think about. And I think the pilot analogy is you've got to put yourself in the position of a genuine pilot, right? You really have to be onto it. You can't, every time they fly out here from Auckland or New Zealand on a domestic or an international flight, they have to shower in the morning, be sober. They've got to be ready. They've got to put the suit on. They've got to look the part. They've got to show up. They've got to be prepared for the journey, check in with the co-pilot. There's a lot of checking in and precautions going on and procedures. So this is how we should be as a bhakti yogi, as a genuine yogi, or a successful person, because this is what Navy SEALs do, athletes do. Anyone who has any level of success at a high level thinks this way and does these check-ins, okay? And of course, imagine, so you get into the cockpit, you have to know how to fly the plane. So it's our duty. It's our responsibility to own our own crazy minds and bodies and make sure that we understand that, that the settings and how we want the brain to be and how to direct it, we have to know how to make the computer. I like the idea of the brain and the computer. You really have to program it every day. And it may have wild bugs and different stuff going on, algorithms and some software issues and whatever. It's all different for every devotee, depending on their karma and previous activities. You can distinguish between what is favorable for your journey ahead and what is actually not a proper procedure. So you have to know those things. This links to what I talk about in terms of how much do we as devotees understand chapter 2 Bhagavad Gita? How much have we really applied and actually living and understanding, even materially, how the brain works, how the mind works? I like to use brain because biochemistry is a lot simpler to understand. How the tricks of the brain, the kind of things it proposes, negative thoughts, these thoughts, that thoughts. It's all about understanding how to direct the brain. It's really key. And as I've said time and time again, if you look even at non-devotees who are successful, they don't take the mind seriously. They know the challenges of the mind. They know the mind needs direction every day. It needs positive feeding every day. It needs to be not taken seriously, like the feelings part of the mind. So as devotees, we should be really expert at that, like the pilot. When he's flying, he can't let his emotions make his decisions. Turbulence comes, something happens with the plane. He has to remain sober and just direct the plane and work with what's happening at all times and keep that plane on track. So I hope this was useful. We are literally a pilot. We are the spirit soul. We have this giant plane we're flying. We have this computer system in here, this intelligence system and software that runs the plane, directs the plane with all its little intricacies, and we should be very expert at that. We should be stepping into this plane. And when it comes to just, if we can think in that way, a success way. So when we come across challenges, or our chanting is slipping, or we've got challenges with our relationships, we've got things going on, and the balance between our responsibilities. We need to step in as a professional pilot and understand, okay, if things are going off track over the last months with my sadhana or somewhere in your spiritual life, you should be thinking, how do I get it back on track? Co-pilot, ringing guru, and make a plan over the next months. So what I'm trying to make, I suppose one thing I think is really important is that although we have this long dream, this long goal of becoming Krishna consciousness and being in the spiritual world, we have to come right down to the next 6 months or the next 30 days or the next 90 days and just work in small incremental steps and journey, like the caterpillar, a couple of feet each time, 90 days, 90 days. And we just keep track. Then things become easy, doable, trackable. It's really easy to focus in. It's easy to see whether because when a pilot's flying to Australia, they're always checking in every hour. What do they need to do in the next hour? Things are going off. Okay, we need to pull there's back winds, these winds, I don't know, weather coming, maybe a bit of a diversion coming in. They then set the goal and then they do that for an hour. And then, there's time frames. So I really humbly request, if you want to move forward and, you want to move away from just focusing on struggles and difficulties, just start putting positive 30 to 90 day goals and steps in front of yourself and just execute them. And I go into more of those details in other podcasts and blogs and stuff. So I hope this has been useful. And if you can get this right and you can understand, being responsible for your own brain and mind, understanding how to have the right mindset for success, having your goals, the second ingredient, really clear. So you know your target, precision, in incremental steps, and then having the accountability, which is, again, the most underutilized resource that we have in our Krishna consciousness, getting guidance every step of the way, week to week, month to month, leaning in, then you're sure to then it becomes automatic that you'll land at the right place in the right time. You can't just chant Hare Krishna and be whimsical while operating in a material machine in the material world. You cannot be whimsical. It's only automatic once you've got all the settings right and the co-pilot and you've turned up, you've showed up with mind and sense control, you've set all the settings and the switches, you understand the brain, you know where you're going, then you will automatically arrive at the destination. Because at the time of death, any kind of deviation away from thinking not of Krishna ends up at a different place. It's very, very subtle. We have to be really clear. So in terms of worshipping Krishna, we're very clear, but we also have to be clear with our steps moving to Krishna. So, Hare Krishna, spirit souls, pilots of your spiritual life and spiritual journey. I hope this has been useful to you. Please comment below. Please subscribe and like the channel. That would be really useful. And I'll look forward to sharing some more with you soon. Hare Krishna.